So why are churches important? This is a quote from Simon Jenkins, author of England's 1,000 Best Churches, and this sums up a little bit of how churches fit into the history and the landscape of the English countryside. Love that phrase, they witness the breeze of history, making its imprint on stone, brick, wood and plaster. And also really important as you work to realise that no church is going to be similar to any other. They're all individual, they're all different. And as you'll see a little bit later on, even the tiniest church can hold the most amazing things that you would never imagine were there. So the importance of churches is they're often the oldest building standing in landscape. This is Gatenthorpe, this is in Norfolk, and this tower has been in the village for probably 1,000 years. You can see by these round-headed windows in the tower, they're very indicative of it being either late Saxon or early Norman. So this building has been in this place, in this landscape, in the same use as a place of worship for probably 1,000 years. There's stunning buildings architecturally as well. This is Walpole St Peter, also in Norfolk, and you can see just what a dramatic, imposing building this is. And this is in what is now a relatively small village, but it gives you an idea of the history of the area and the wealth that would have been in the area in the 1300s to create a stunning building like this. They hold arts and sculpture and painting, again, which has probably been in situ for many, many years. This is from Castor, and this is a Saxon carving in the church there, which again, we think has been on that site for probably 1,000 years. Wall paintings, this is at Houghton on the Hill in Norfolk, where there are a lot of really spectacular wall paintings. This is an angel playing the trumpet and raising the souls at the Last Judgment, and you can see the angel and his trumpet there. And these paintings have been uncovered relatively recently, and we think they're some of the oldest paintings in a church in the country, and again about 800 or 900 years old and still in the place they were painted, so not locked up in a museum or out of their usual site, exactly where they've always been as objects of devotion in the church. And you see a lot of local craftsmanship as well. This is an angel from Blythburgh in Suffolk, which is a church that's full of these beautifully carved and gilded and painted angels, many of which still have the original medieval paint on them as well. And you see a number of angel roofs in East Anglia, and you can tell they're all carved by different individuals because they're all subtly different. So you see this one at Blythburgh with these big feathery outstretched wings and these lovely golden ringlets. On the left is one from Necton, also in Norfolk. And you can see immediately this was made by a different craftsman who's got a different style of carving the hair and the wings. So as you travel around and look at all these different roofs, you can see the same craftsman built some of them and different craftsmen built others. And when they're all put together, this is the angel roof at St Wendredas in March. You can see just how spectacular these are where they've survived in their complete state. So this is a rood screen from Thornham Church, also in Norfolk. And as well as being a really beautiful painted and gilded work of art, you can see the passage of history here. Back in the years of the Reformation, it became disapproved of to worship saints and prophets like the ones painted here. And so as you can see, a lot of them were painted over, or as here, had their faces and their eyes scratched out. So that gives you an idea. You can see the history of worship and the history of the church in these items. You can also, on this one, this is a church that has a lot of bats, and you can see on the stone ledge at the bottom of the screen, little marks from bat urine landing and marking the bottom of the screen there. Obviously, one of the glories of a lot of our churches is stained glass. And again, this can be from very, very old to the relatively new. This beautiful Virgin on the left is from Stody, and that is medieval glass, compared with on the right, the east window at Old Hunstanton, which is a beautiful Victorian survival with these lovely clear, crisp shapes and symmetrical glass. Now, we said that sometimes the smallest churches hold the most amazing things. This is Thornham Parva Church in Suffolk. As you can see, a really, really simple church. It almost looks like a barn with a little tower from the outside. But once you get inside, you see this. This is just a section of what's called the Thornham Parva retabule. And this is a panel that runs along the altar, showing in this case several saints again. And this is painted and gilded and carved and mosaics as well. Now, the other half of this panel at the moment is in the Musée de Cluny in Paris, is one of the treasures of the museum. And this half is still in the church that it was created for, in the position where it would always have been. And you can just walk in completely free when the churches are open and see it as it should be in situ, which is just an incredible thing to experience when you get to go out to these churches. And of course, it's not just past history that's leaving their mark on these churches. The people who are worshipping there at the moment are leaving their own history, creating their own amazing art and artifacts. And this is one of my favourites. This is the beautiful Millennium window at Guestwick in Norfolk. This does have a bat in the top half of it. This photo doesn't quite catch it. But as you can see, they chose to depict a whole range of wildlife local to the church and local to the village and created by a local artist. And this was put in for the Millennium. So not just history that's gone, but these churches are still creating their own history and leaving their mark for the future. There's a lot of family history, obviously. When you go to churches, people may have been living locally for generations. These are the ledger stones of the Girdlestone family at Wood Dorling. You can see their crest is this little rabbit sat on a rock in the sea. And we know that several generations of this family were rectors of the church, and they're buried in front of the chancel. And we know that there are still some descendants of this family in the village at the moment. So the people you may be going and meeting can have a history with the church of several hundred years sometimes. And to compare that very, very local family history, you may find things that are nationally or even internationally important. This is a memorial in Heacham Church to Pocahontas, who obviously was one of the first ever Native Americans to come over to Europe and marry John Rolfe in Heacham. She's actually buried in a church in Essex, but the family are from Heacham. And so there's this international monument in there, which brings quite a few American visitors to the church as well.